Hey everybody, before we go into our episode, I just want to give you guys a quick update and also some word of appreciation. Really am grateful for all the loves and support that we have been getting. Been having the chance to meet a lot of people that can also come on the podcast and really talk on their insight to how they became successful, building relationships, love, understanding, patience. There's so many things we could talk about, and I'm truly excited to share that with you guys. And if you guys haven't subscribed, you should subscribe to whatever podcast platform that you're on. And man, it's really gonna be one hell of a ride, because one thing's for sure, we also created our communication card game called Enough Said. Perfect icebreaker questions so you can really get to know someone the right way. When you ask interesting questions, you'll find the person interesting. I reassure you, guys that actually have gotten it has given me the feedback, and really you guys are loving it. And there's a time that I was able to experience it amongst people that didn't even know each other, and we're all in a group setting and we're all having a great time. So I'm just so grateful that it's actually working and you guys love it. I can't wait for this to go a lot more farther than wherever it can be, because communication is important. So let's go into our episode for today. Peace.
When it comes to communication, for me, it's an art. The whole point is to get to know that person, is to learn about them, right? To step outside of ourselves, because there's so much that we can learn. That's the whole point of communication. It's an exchange of ideas, thoughts, feelings. Having integrity and having honesty in those interactions.
Welcome everybody to the Rally Cry podcast. My name is Angel.
And my name is Tyler.
And you guys are here because you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to move from the past, and you want to live in this moment. And today, yes, we got a guest. We got another guest for you guys today. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm so excited for this guest. And before I introduce you to this guest, I want to make sure that you guys follow us on Instagram at The Rally Cries, and also follow us on your favorite podcast platform. There's Apple, there's Spotify. Let us know by leaving us a review about what we haven't talked about, or maybe something we haven't talked about enough. And today, oh my God, I really appreciate this individual here today. He's a full-time speech communication professor teaching over in Kissimmee, Florida. So he's over there right now, and he teaches at Valencia College. And he has skills of public speaking. He does speech writing, and that builds confidence and the ability to build relationships with effective communication. That's the key word. So everyone, welcome Kristopher Merceron. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Well, hopefully I can live up to that introduction. So.
I think if anything you can, because all of that is true. These are the things that you've done for yourself. And I think that, you know, again, I really appreciate you coming here. So thank you. And what made you want to get into communication? Like what singed you to that? Because a lot of people think, oh, I already know how to communicate. I'm straight up and I'll tell you what I mean. But what about you? What makes that a skill?
Well, first off, thank you guys so much for having me. I really, really appreciate this. I appreciate always the opportunity to get to talk about something that I absolutely love. So I'll be honest, I was one of those people. I definitely thought, I'm like, oh yeah, public speaking. I was a theater person, you know, back in the day, and singing all the time. So I'm like, yeah, I got this. This is something I always do. And I took I didn't take public speaking first. I took interpersonal communication first. And again, I thought I knew it all. As soon as we got into the content, I'm like, wait a minute. Am I really a good communicator? Do I actually know how to communicate with others? And we would do all these different exercises and things like that. And it really, really got my mind going. Took public speaking, same thing. And originally I had gone in to my undergrad wanting to do nursing. And that did not happen. So I had to make a little bit of a shift, but I realized that the common thread was all these communication courses I was taking, and I loved it. I fell in love with it. I started having more conversations with the professors, asking them about their career track, their professional growth, the things that they did in their field, the research that they were doing. And the more and more I had those conversations, the greater the passion became. And then that led me into my master's. So
Mm.
it was not what I had originally planned at
Mm.
all, but I'm very, very happy that that's the direction I
Yeah.
ended up.
I love that, and I appreciate you for sharing because, I think even for myself, and there could be a lot of people out there that can relate, like a lot of the things that they feel passionate about is almost by accident, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And on accident in a good way, not where it's like, oh, well, I messed up. Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like communication is one of those things that is desensitized, right? Since we
Yeah.
communicate
Mhm.
so often, we think that that is just enough. But
Yeah.
what is enough, right? And to understand that communication isn't knowing how just to communicate, but knowing how to adapt to the communication that the person you're talking to. And
Absolutely.
I love that you say your first class was interpersonal communication skills. What is one of those skills that really stuck out to you when doing that? Because I think a lot of people don't know how to be interpersonal.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing for me was active listening. Again,
Mhm.
something that we all thought, oh, yeah, when your parents or an adult figure would ask you, are you listening? You're like, yeah. Were you? Probably not.
Right.
Right? Probably not.
You just said yeah
You're
because
just
you
like,
was listening just to
yeah.
respond.
And
Because
you're just
that's
letting it fly over your
exactly.
head, and like you don't even want to really hear it, but you're just like trying to make it seem
Yes.
like you did.
Yep.
Yeah.
In one ear, right out the other.
Yep.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I was one of those people. I'm like, yeah, I know how to listen. I hear people, but active listening is very, very different. It's sitting there with the intention of actually understanding and processing what information is being sent over to you and allowing for that information to settle in. And if you don't understand something, or if you have questions, or something doesn't seem right, then rather than just jumping to the first thing that we do, which is immediately
Mhm.
responding, we sit back and we wait to see if that information is going to like fill the gaps. Because later on, sometimes that's what will happen. If you allow that person, if you're actually listening to that person, they'll answer that question. They'll clean up a lot of those gaps for you rather than you just having to jump in, interrupt their thought, that type of thing. So the more and more I started to learn about that, I started to like be a little bit more intentional in the interactions that I was in the spaces that I was in. Am I actively listening to the people that are speaking to me, that I'm actually conversing with? It's sometimes scary because
You know,
you're not.
I agree with that so much because I think like when I came across like the concept of active listening, it was new to me because I was like, like I don't think I've been listening to conversations as I should be. And I think also a bit of that could be due to ego, especially
Yeah.
with how, you're listening to a conversation and you're making the connections already in your head about what you want to respond to. And maybe you
Yes.
cling onto these things and you just want to be heard. And now it goes from actually having a conversation where you're empathetically hearing the person and responding to what they're saying. But then it's also like, but what about me? Like I matter too. So like, can't I get my chime in as well?
Yeah. It's me, 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 me. We're so much in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when we think about communication, there's so many different factors. So at the very, very, very core of it, we know that communication is literally just transferring of information, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
have a sender, we have a receiver. That's at its basic level. And we have the medium of which whatever the information is going to flow through. It could be through a virtual setting like this. It could be
Mm-hmm.
face to face. It could be through text, written, what have you. But there's still more to it, right? What
Mm-hmm.
is the information that's being sent? Who is the receiver? Do they actually understand it? What about the noise, the internal and external noise that's involved? And we're talking not just for the sender, but
Mm-hmm.
also for the receiver too. So when we're thinking about all these processes, even at its basic level, we have to consider the other person. We have to consider, well, how am I sending this information? Will it be received in its intended way? Will they understand it? Will they have questions? what are potential factors that will impact the delivery of that information.
Mm-hmm.
But because we're so focused on ourselves, a lot of that gets missed.
Yeah.
And
Oh
that's
man.
yeah, Tyler. I feel you because I totally agree. I think that as many questions as you was just mentioning right there, that's the hard part though. I
Mhm.
think people think it was like, oh, it's not hard to be a communicator or being good and effective, but we don't think about it enough to know that it's actually a skill, right?
Yeah.
Asking yourself those questions is more of what is it called? Intrapersonal thing
Mhm.
rather than an interpersonal. And
Yeah.
if guys don't know what interpersonal and intra is more for yourself and inter is for the communication that you have between two people. Just in case. And the thing is that a lot of times there's many of us that are in our ego.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, Chris, it's where we worry about ourselves and delivering about what we want to talk about rather than being interested in what they want to talk about or what is bothering them or anything like that so you can build relationship because you already know yourself. You could
Yeah.
talk about yourself all day, but that could kind of get boring because you already know. It's like watching a movie again. It's like, I already know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, wouldn't you agree that you would kind of want to have a conversation with someone in ways of trying to be having questions and being interested within them? Think about them first, and then if they talk about ask you for you, then that's when that relationship goes hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the hope for any interaction that we have, right? I mean, that's what I would hope, right?
Right.
Like you're going to meet somebody for the first time. It could be a new friend. It could be a romantic partner. It could be a new coworker. The whole point is to get to know that person, is to learn about them, right? And
Yep.
then when the time is right, when it is appropriate, then we can go in and divulge however much information that we want the other person to know about us. But the first step is to open that door and to allow that person in. So that active listening piece is very, very important. But stepping outside of that ego, we go into, I mean, imagine if every single one of us went into these interactions with, okay, I got to tell everyone this about me, or I got to tell everyone this about
Mm-hmm.
me.
Right.
Then your goal isn't to learn anything about anyone. It's just to tell people about you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that could be draining rather
That can be
because you're
very
giving so
draining.
much.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, because you're giving so much, which is off the intent, of course, yourself, right?
Yeah.
But you're giving so much and you're not receiving anything.
Yeah.
Rather
Mm-hmm.
than when you're getting to know someone, you're receiving, you're not really doing anything. You're just
Yeah.
all you have to do is absorb. And when you absorb, you're like a sponge, right? Think of it
Yeah. Taking it
metaphorically.
in.
And then after that you could squeeze out from all the water, all the juice, however you want to say it, and that's giving back. So it's like you receive, you give, you receive and you give, rather than thinking that you're only giving. You need to also know that there's a cycle in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to talk about, because you said new relationships, talking to someone new. I think communication a lot of times when we think about it, is where we're having when the stakes are high.
Yeah.
When if it's something that's making me uncomfortable, or if it's with a significant other and I don't know how to communicate and our emotions are high, what would you say could be one thing that someone can do in order to make effective communication when the stakes are high and emotions are high?
Yeah. It's so that's part of the noise, right? So the external and the internal noise, especially when the circumstance itself has, I mean, it's say an emergency situation or it's a high emotional
Mm-hmm.
circumstance. Like all of that's going to influence all parts of our communication, not even just how we verbally communicate, but even our nonverbal. I
Mm-hmm.
know I've been guilty of this before when someone comes up to me after an argument and they're like, "Are you okay?" Fine. Okay, well, the eye roll,
You're
The
right.
the head tilt,
the
the head
head
tilt. Like
tilt,
I'm not even
the
balanced to myself, so I gotta.
yeah,
Yeah. Like I guess
right.
the the
Oh,
hand gesture, like,
the
I'm fine.
hand gesture, the arms across the chest, right? The
closing
Yep.
themselves
tone.
off to protect themselves.
Exactly. So all of those things, we start to kind of lose sight of all of it, right? Because
Mm,
we're emotional, we're angry, we're upset, what have you. My advice to a lot of people, and this goes across the board, is three things: is to be direct, be honest, but also be compassionate. So again, when we're thinking about when people dance around certain issues, or if they throw in all of this language, this coded language to pad something, for someone. Oh, well, I don't want it to hurt. Well, okay. Well, I think it would hurt less if you were just direct with them. If you just said, I don't like this, rather
Mm-hmm.
than playing this whole game for them to figure out that you don't like this.
Like
Be
playing detective.
direct.
Candace Owens calls it word gymnastics.
Exactly.
Word gymnastics.
I feel like as a receiver, I got to play mental gymnastics because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how do I figure this out? How do we interpret it?
Right. And I think it's not fair, right? Like why I have to play detective to figure you out when you don't even know the law and order of what is right.
Law and
Exactly.
Order, the show. Okay, Angel.
Right.
And even talking about like nonverbal and verbal communication, like we even have to think about like how dangerous it is with social media and texting, because texting, it could go so out of place that a message could easily be misconstrued for something else. And like,
Ah,
it makes me wonder, because now it's more ego, because you have the power in your hands, like literally the phone is in your hands and you're the one typing.
Yeah.
And I think because we have so much to say, it's like we already guess or speculate like that their tone is negative. And this
Yeah.
is something that I learned in Crucial Accountability, that we already create this story in our mind, because whatever the external influences are around us, let's say we're having a bad day, it rained, so now my hairdo's messed up, or I have a migraine, or I haven't eaten all day, so now I have an attitude, I'm hangry. And that could make us project a certain image onto somebody else and frame them into being someone that they're not. And now
Absolutely.
here we are creating an unnecessary, uncomfortable conversation. And a lot of times, even with social media, like we all have our own opinion and we lose sight of how we can address our opinion versus just blurting it out and feeling like, no, I don't agree with you. Like, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's, once again, ego comes into that. We want to be right so much and want to be agreed so much. And once again, in Crucial Accountability, we look for acceptance. We look for belonging. We want people to belong to us. So it's whether or not we take that accountability with us, and we choose silence or violence. And a lot of times when we choose violence, we see the path that it goes down to. And that's not ever okay, because if we could listen to somebody that's genuinely speaking and not talking, because there's a difference between speaking and talking, and it's a lot more prepared. So I really do agree, like nonverbal communication says a lot. I remember earlier in the podcast we said that so much of our communication is done through nonverbals.
Yes.
So with body language and everything, like that's why, like, as animated as we can be while talking,
Yeah.
we know we're being playful, we're being energetic,
Yeah.
we're feeling the conversation.
Yeah.
But if I'm like this and I'm just rolling my eyes or anything like that, or I'm like doing these little gestures or noises,
right.
how is somebody going to want to continue being open to me? So now I'm closing them off, or closing the bridge that's connecting us, and I'm burning it before it can continue extending.
Do you guys remember? I don't know. I used to get in trouble for this all the time. The sucking of the teeth.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. All the
like do I
time.
gotta do that? Or like, oh,
Right.
that's what you think?
And it would always be followed with, what was that? Oh,
Did I hear correctly?
no.
Don't suck your teeth at me.
Yeah.
I'll give you something to suck your teeth about.
Right?
Oh, you want to try today, huh?
No.
No, stop. Yes, no, I am one of them. I am one of
Yeah.
those people, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing, right? Because in the moment, all of the emotions, that energy, it just automatically produces a response, right? We're going to just outwardly show that we're upset. And that's not helping the situation. We already know that. That's not going to help the situation. But because we're so stuck in our ego, we're so trapped in our own little world, that we're going to just allow those emotions to take the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
One of the things that I tell my students all the time, and anyone that I work with, is the mind is a very powerful tool, extremely powerful tool. And I think we can all agree about that. But if we don't actually take the driver's seat, especially when it comes to a powerful tool that we possess, and we allow it to kind of go on its own, we're going to lose that battle every single time. especially when it comes to public speaking. A lot of times when we go in, the moment we hear the word public speaking, I know a lot of people will get the butterflies. Yeah, the heart will skip
Oh,
a beat, right?
stage fright.
The
Yep.
stage fright. But it's also followed with all the negative thoughts. All of those negative thoughts aren't produced by anyone else. They're not bestowed upon you. They're not given to you. You don't have someone sitting right next to you constantly telling you that you're not a good public speaker, you're going to fail. No, it's all being produced by us, by the powerful tool that we possess. And because we don't have too much control of it, or we're allowing it to kind of go on its own and act on just what that fear alone, that nervousness alone, that anxiety alone, well, what do you think is going to happen? All of those things carry a negative connotation, so it's all going to bring us down. So when it comes to communication, for me, it's an art. It's an art form. How we communicate, how we interact, we have to be able to tap into this powerful tool that we have to step outside of ourselves, because there's so much that we can learn. That's the whole point of communication. It's an exchange of ideas, thoughts, feelings.
Yeah.
It's
And I
tough.
love that when you say that, you know, you gotta step out of yourself, right? And the only way you step out is when you go through it. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So when you go through something, that's when you can then get out. So it's more of so saying that to be an effective communicator, it sounds as if you need to be able to learn how to communicate with yourself.
Absolutely.
You need to be honest with yourself, to trust yourself, like Tyler be saying.
Yeah.
And I think when you're able to be honest with yourself, you could be honest with someone else. If you're able to communicate with yourself, you'll be able to communicate with someone else. And it all starts with yourself first before it can go anywhere else. And I think that, you know, me and Tyler say it so much more often, to a point is where like we need to understand this, right? Because communication comes from love, how love, respect, understanding, patience, tolerance, peace, right? That all comes from being a good communicator, about effectively communicate. And I remember when you were saying the 3 steps, I know it's direct, compassionate,
and honesty. That's why I was like, yeah.
Yes. Okay. I said it without even knowing. Look at that. Right. And I wanted to elaborate more on the direct part, because I think a lot of us be like, oh, I am direct. Yeah, I'm very direct. I'll say it right how I feel, and then all these other things. It's like you can say what you feel and what you should be thinking are two different.
Yes.
You could be feeling, your feelings are right. Absolutely.
They're valid.
But you need to articulate those feelings into what sounds right so that it can be right for the person that you're talking to. And understanding how this person interprets things is also very important, and that comes with active listening. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
It's one of those things where you have to think about someone other than yourself. And it's happening very quickly, right? You know, we step into a new conversation with someone, and we have to immediately step outside of ourselves and allow them in. We have to actively listen to the things that they're saying to us. So this is all happening very, very quickly. But in a high pressure, high tense, high emotional situation, again, it's still happening very, very quickly, but we may not have as much control as we did, say, in a calmer or a more relaxed situation. So the question then becomes, well, how do I still maintain all of those skills that I had in that relaxed environment, and now apply them to a high tension, high emotional environment, to make sure that I'm still being an effective communicator and not making the situation worse. So it does take a lot of mental work for us, because we have to actively step outside of ourselves in those moments. And we have to be quick with analyzing, or even recognizing, okay, yeah, you know, my tone wasn't the best there, or I was direct, but how I delivered that probably wasn't the best in terms of, you know, the information that I was sending over to them. So yes, we can be direct, But having those emotions and having those other factors associated with it could cloud the message. All of that noise, again, can cloud the message that's being received by the receiver. So we
You know,
have to be very, very cognizant of that.
that reminds me of another thing that I learned. Ironically, we have the act of doing CPR on
Yeah.
others when they're not breathing and they're knocked out. And in the book, Crucial Accountability, they talk about CPR and they break it down with content, pattern, and then relationship. And with content, you're addressing what's bothering you or something that's right there right now. Like we're talking about something right now, effective communication right now. This is content. And then the pattern of how people can constantly not communicate well, and then more arguments happen. So now we're talking about the pattern of why these conversations can't go well. And then after that point, especially with patterns, you got to address the pattern that you're noticing and not get lost in the content, because then you lose sight of the goal. And then with relationships, you don't want the relationship to be the one that's getting damaged in the end. We're hurting ourselves in this process, hurting each other. And now here we are hurting the relationship that connects us together. And when it comes to that, we also want to protect ourselves. And we have this inner child that we still have when it comes to humor, life, family, and all other aspects in our lives. And I think even as kids, we always loved the bedtime stories and everything like that. So, like, would you say storytelling has a big role when it comes to public speaking?
100%. 100%. One of the things that I enjoy when it comes to my public speaking classes is that I give my students the opportunity to tell their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And all I'll do is I'll give them a theme. So one of the speeches that we do is a failure speech. And how they define failure is up to them, because how I define it is different from how you guys would define it, from how they would define it. What my experience is with failure throughout my life is different from yours, different from theirs. So even if I'm giving you just the platform, I'm giving you a theme, you
Mm-hmm.
have the freedom and the flexibility to take it in any direction that you want, because I want you more focused on the storytelling aspect of it. I want you more focused on the personal connection that you have to whatever you're going to share with your audience, because the public speaking part of it will fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than hyper focusing on, okay, this is how you can properly be a public speaker in front of an audience, we'll talk about those things. But rather than hyper focusing on it, our focus is going to be on the story itself. Because the moment that you
Mm-hmm.
start to immerse yourself in that story, and you could see it in people's faces when they're reflecting on the different details of their own experiences, you could see them visually revisiting those feelings, those emotions, where they were in that particular time. And that's
Mm-hmm.
very, very powerful as an audience member. So as someone receiving this, it's not just the information that they're verbally telling us, but we could see them actually reflecting and going through it as they're telling the story. But guess what they're doing? Publicly speaking. They're doing the thing that they
Mm.
were afraid of, but all they're doing is telling a story. So
I
it's,
love that.
yeah, it's fun. It's so much fun, but yeah.
And the
Yeah.
and the difference between, I love how you said a failure speech, because
Yeah.
we, like, even as, let's say you're a valedictorian in high school or college, and you're preparing for your acceptance speech, your victory
Mm-hmm.
speech, and like you don't know what to say because you want to be humble. You're
Yeah.
embracing the humility that you had to face up to this point because now you're victorious, and you also don't want to come off snobby and arrogant either.
Yeah.
So a failure speech, it allows someone to, accept the things that didn't go the way they wanted it to. Also, at the same time, they're revisiting, like you said, traumas or maybe experiences that gave them this power, because now they, like, the idea of not doing good is out of their mind. They're so passionate now about it that it goes back to how we cling on to negative things so easily. So a failure
Hmm.
speech, I think, is a great tactic for someone. I mean, I wish I learned it in my oral communication course. At least if I did a failure speech, that would have been something that could help me climb over the hump of stage fright. I've always at least up until that point, I had fear when it came to being on stage, because I would overthink, and then I
Yes.
would like forget my entire speech or what I came here to talk about.
Yeah.
So up until that point, like I got more comfortable with the topics that I was doing, and I started choosing things I was more passionate about that made it easier. And I remember I was telling Angel, I did a speech about SpongeBob, and ironically, my professor loved it because that was one of his favorite cartoons growing up.
Yes.
And it made it so much easier. And by the way, I stole the show because I was the first one, and he was like, "Oh, I feel bad for anybody that has to follow up with that because that was, it's about SpongeBob, so you can't beat it."
Yeah.
But besides that, it not even just being passionate about it, but also being able to like, I don't even call it autopilot, but like when you just know something so well, it comes natural to you, and that's why it doesn't even seem like you need preparation around it because you just know it like the back of your hand.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's important. So I really appreciate that you have such a tactic for your class.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I really
I
do.
think is I think it's important. When you're storytelling, you're trying to, you know, make sure that you have this topic about failure, right? In that example. And you don't want to go too off topic because what you're really talking about is this.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of skill also helps people when they're making communication with anyone else, right? If I want to talk to you about something like, let's say if it's promotion or something that has bothered me or anything that you really want to get into, sometimes people beat around the bush a lot. Like they don't know how to get into it. So they have other things that lead them into it, but that's not effective. You have to be, as you mentioned, direct, but not direct in a way where you're just using any words that come to mind,
Yeah.
but be patient enough and thinking about what is effective, right? And like for me, I had times where something was bothering me, and rather than waiting for so long, I have to address it as soon as possible because there's a thing called lag time, which is in my book in Crucial Conversations, where the longer that you wait, the more likely it's going to get worse. Because if you think about it, something that is lagging is when you're losing connection. So when you have that lag time between what is bothering you and you don't address it, you're losing that connection towards this person, and that person's losing connection towards you because you don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on. And if you don't vocally say it, how would they know? And then you blame them for it because they didn't know, but it's not fair because you didn't even give them the chance to say yes or no. So it's kind of like, what are we going to do if we don't say anything, right? And one thing, because I work with kids, and anytime when they do something that I don't appreciate, I give it to their attention by saying, hey, I'm letting you guys know now that I don't like this. And now it's fair because I told you. If I didn't tell you, then it wouldn't be fair. But now it's fair. So next time when you do it, there will be a consequence because I'm not going to keep allowing this to happen. It's not fair to me, but it's also not fair to you because I don't want to put a consequence on you because you're not listening and having everyone sit down and stuff like that because we like playing activities. We like doing things together. But if we can't listen, then how can we really do things and get things done? And having that kind of communication is what's effective, right? Just saying, hey, I don't like this. I would appreciate if I got this. And that's it. It doesn't need to be like, oh, you did this. I don't like that you did this. And you had to yell or have this kind of tone. You had to be very, and I like that you're doing this right now, Chris, by the way. You take your time talking. And that's how we have to do it. Like a lot of times we just want to blurt out to what we really want to say or feel because we're so anxious of getting it across. We don't want to mess up, or we just wanted to get it over with because we've never done this before. But really taking your time and talking, it is a skill, and it's something that you have to cultivate. You have to come back and reflect on how could I have done that better. And they didn't like the way I said that, so maybe I had to do something different with them. Not everything works for everybody. I think communication things is like, oh, after I learned how to communicate, it works for everybody. No, it doesn't. If anything, the communication only works for you, and then you need to know how to adjust it after that. It's a forever thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like I want to double back to when Angel was saying lag time, because also in Crucial Accountability, they were saying that if the moment you hesitate and don't speak up about what you want to speak up and you're uncomfortable and all these things, the longer that you prolong it, you're still thinking about it, and now you're manifesting this even more into something that it isn't, and you're allowing this person to get, if anything, a secondhand touch of identity crisis because they think that everything's okay. They think that everything's fine and nothing's bad or anything like that. And when you take so long and you finally bring it up, they're like, what took you so long to tell me this? Now it's like, here I am thinking that I wasn't doing anything wrong, obviously, because I'm not going to think like that. I'm thinking that we're being friends, whether it's your significant other, a family member, nothing is wrong. But now that you let this build up and you decide to bring it up so late, now it's your fault, because if it really mattered to you, you would have brought that up. And that's why beating around the bush doesn't do anybody any good, because you may be upset. You may be worrying about the person's reaction and how they may react, and now you don't want to argue. And all those what ifs, you can't really entertain that. These are intrusive thoughts that eventually talk you out of doing what you're supposed to do. And 9 times out of 10, they've even done it in social experiments. People aren't going to speak up. Like if somebody cuts you in line at the movie theater, 9 times out of 10, nobody's going to speak up. But if they see somebody speak up, they'll get the influence, and then the next person that gets cut in line, they'll almost do it the same way as them. So if it's a negative approach to tell somebody to get to the back of the line, or a positive approach, based on how somebody does it, that influence gets to everybody else, and then people do it the same way.
Yeah.
So that's beating around the bush. It does not save you guys. It does not save you.
Be direct, be honest. And what I love is that you guys are already touching upon it. That third one being be compassionate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how we actually deliver something, how we say something, the body language that we have accompany whatever we're saying to someone, all of that plays a role in how it will be received by that person. And especially when we are in a stressful or a tense or emotional situation, there are a lot more steps that we need to take to keep ourselves in check and to make sure that, we have control, as much control as we can, over all those different elements. And then we can proceed in, relaying whatever that information is to the other person, and then be more receptive of what that feedback is going to be, or whatever that response is going to be. So it's really, again, thinking about the other person, thinking about the people that you're talking to. I know that we're not going to be able to satisfy 100% of our audience all the time. That's an unrealistic expectation that many of us do place on ourselves. But if I'm able to reach at least one person, then I know that I've done my job. That's more realistic, and that's more empowering for me as a speaker. So when it comes to that one-on-one interaction, even if my message gets sent and say something comes in and it doesn't get received in the way that I intended, that's not a reflection of that person. There was an additional factor that interrupted the flow, that interrupted the receiver actually taking that information in the way that you intended. So I'm not going to lash out at that person. No, now I'm going to take a step back, reconfigure, and then redirect that message. There's something that Einstein said, make everything as simple as possible, but no simpler. And I love that, because we're not dumbing things down. I mean, we've all had that feeling when we feel talked down to, or we feel demeaned. That's not the intention. The intention is being direct and making things accessible. The intent is having integrity and having honesty in those interactions. The intent is that I'm actually going through this whole process to share this with you because I care. So the moment we start to look at all of our different interactions through those lenses, that's where we can start to become more effective communicators. And we can be more intentional with all of the different relationships that we create, regardless of what they are.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I'm snapping fingers because it's so true, right? I think from my personal experiences, being able to be honest with myself is where it really starts. You know what I mean? Asking myself those questions is effective to then for me to communicate about how I feel towards someone, or how they made me feel and stuff like that. And I think that's the biggest part, right? That goes for public speaking too, because when you're able to be vulnerable, that's when you're able to communicate. You know what I mean? When you're able to be honest, that works hand in hand. And I don't think enough of us does that, because it's not only ego, but then we think about what other people are gonna think. And I say this all the time, and I want to share it with you, but it's kind of a quote, and it goes like, "I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. And it's really just saying that I think I am the person that I'm assuming you think of me. And that's what happens when we're trying to communicate. We think that this person's going to react off this way. And it's like you didn't even give them the chance to even really show you. You know what I mean? So instead of being in your pride and your ego and being in fear, right? And just to elaborate, fear means face everything and rise. So go against that fear and just step up and show up for yourself. When you show up, it gets better after that. You do the small things to build momentum. That momentum leads into the bigger things. And once you get those bigger things done, that builds confidence.
Atomic Habits.
There you go.
Yes. There we go. I
Oh
love
my
that.
gosh, but I want to ask though, like, communication, as we've mentioned before, is one of those things that is a constant thing that you have to cultivate, right? What is one thing that you do on your own time that gets you better at communicating? Is it writing in a journal? Is it talking in the mirror? That's something I do. Like, what is something that you do?
So I actually do both. I
Look at that.
Yeah, I journal a lot. And, I tell my students all the time too, especially when you're going to, if it's an interview or you're going to deliver a speech or you're meeting someone for the first time, I was like, yeah, sit in front of a mirror, stand in front of a mirror, practice some of the things that you're going to talk about, practice some of the responses that you may have, look at what it would look like if you were just sitting in silence listening. You want to be able to see what the other person or the audience is going to see of you as well. And, one of the things that I think this is the easiest way to put it. We have conversations on a daily basis, right? We have conversations with all different types of people at the grocery store, with our friends and family, with people that we may not like so much. We have conversations on a daily basis. When it comes to situations that make us, say, uncomfortable or they're unfamiliar, all of those skills that we have, that we possess, that we actively use on a daily basis somehow go flying out the window, right? Because it's the nervousness, it's the anxiety, it's all of those things. It's the mind going on its own. All of those things go right out the window. So then now what do? We revert to protecting ourselves. And so we kind of close ourselves in and we're like, okay, well, am I saying this right? Is this the thing that I should say? Should I say this? How should I say this? We start to overthink everything. When all we need to do is just take a breath.
Breathe.
Just breathe. And that's something that I do on a daily basis. If I feel myself all up in here, I'm trying to go through my thoughts all in one breath. You ever try to read something really fast and you try to do it all in one breath? It's uncomfortable.
So basically when Eminem raps or Busta Rhymes and they're like
the whole
when
time
I said it,
like,
when I meant it, when I did it. Right.
I'm like, breathe. And I do that. Yeah, that big deep
breath.
Actually,
if we're talking about communication, and it's funny that Angel said that because there's this lyricist that I listened to since high school, and he said, said it, then I meant it. If I meant it, then I said it. Yeah, I might regret it, but still I done said it. And it was like, wow, he's admitting that he said something, but then he still may regret it because it came out and he may have regurgitated it, may have been word about it.
Yep.
Right.
That's honesty.
Exactly.
There you go.
That's that
There's
honesty.
passion in that too.
Yeah, some compassion in that for sure.
Absolutely. So I would say that would be something that I do is I breathe every day. But I'm intentional with that. Yeah, we have to be.
Yeah.
And in any situation, in any part of your day, it's very easy to ignore something that we do all the time.
Yep.
Communicating.
Absolutely.
We do it all the time. So it's very easy to ignore it. But then when it comes to a stressful situation, what happens when you have a panic attack? What happens when you get super, super anxious? The breathing kind of goes out the window as well. That's something that we do all the time. But because the situation is now stressful, I'm uncomfortable, I feel like I'm kind of losing control. Something that I do all the time now, I have to actively think about. Now I have to actively regain control of my breathing. The same, as simple as that is, right? Breathing. Same can be said for communication. Yeah, it could be easy with my best friend because that's my boy, right? But then say in a romantic relationship and I have a disagreement with my spouse or my significant other, it's a high tense situation. We talk all the time. I communicate all the time. Why is it that all those abilities go flying out the window? Well, because you're uncomfortable. The other person's uncomfortable. You're stressed. You're emotional. There's a lot of factors going on. Now I have to be a lot more intentional of how I'm communicating, regaining that control back over my communication skills.
Yeah.
It can be tough.
And that's a great point that you mentioned. And it makes me think about how when those stakes are high, we resort to our F3 responses, right? Which are the fight, the flight, and then the freeze. And what happens is because us as people instinctively wants to protect ourselves, and we're scared about something that we don't understand. So since we don't understand it, we either fight it or we flight from it, or then we just freeze, like, oh, I don't know what to do. So it's kind of like, rather than doing any of those three things, is like what you mentioned, Chris. You just take a step back and breathe. Like, all right, what do I do now? What did I do wrong? And how can we grow from this? And when you ask those questions, that builds relationships, right?
Yeah.
And of course, right, people might say, like, what if it's not from the other person? Well, you can only do your part, right? You can't worry about what the other person is doing. All you can do is worry about what you can do, right? Think about what is your part, what is your due diligence, and hope that they can do the same. But I will also say that a lot of the times when you're able to be a person that can really like communicate and be respectful, you're more than likely 9 times out of 10 gonna get that back.
Yeah.
And I've had my own experiences. People might respond to them however they want, but the amount of times that I've been respectful and been honest and even owned up to my own actions, I've got a good response from it, because that's all people want. All people want is honesty. But people want honesty and they value it, but they can't be honest themselves. So it's kind of contradicting.
Yeah, but Angel, I think you said that earlier. Like it starts with you, right? You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be direct with yourself. Like you have to be able to turn that lens back at you and be okay with what you see. Be okay with what you hear. Be okay with how you hear it. And then we can now start to strengthen those interactions externally, but it has to start with us.
Yeah, and like it seems like, Spider-Man, there's a web of things that all connect to each other, and it reminds me of the book The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And the very first chapter is yep, there you go, Angel, I know you got it. Go ahead and show it to the cast. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go.
Excellent.
A big thing that's that I learned from it was being impeccable with your word. And that's also the same thing when it comes to religion as well. With God, you want to follow the word, you want to live by the word, you want to serve through the word. And I feel and definitely believe that when we can be honest with ourselves and then truthful to others, it leaves that space of having to cover up any lies, or having to cover up for anything that you missed out on. Because even if it's not a lie, you could tell the truth but not tell the whole truth, which is still technically a fabrication of a lie. And it's scary because we worry about the image, as Angel said, that people have of us, and because the image of ourselves isn't even aligned with what we want it to be, because we're still uncertain of what that is. And I remember I was talking to Angel about this yesterday. I had a great conversation with my barber, and it seems like every segment of our lives there's a sense of identity crisis along the way, because we're learning new things, becoming different people, surrounding ourselves with different people. And when we go through these new chapters, we feel like, I don't know who I am, I don't know where this is, and I don't know if it's good for me or not. And I was gonna ask, because at least getting into effective communication and building that, was there any point in your life that you felt like you had to change your circle of people that you hung around with because it was that difficult accepting that effective communication and honesty?
100%. 100%. 100%. You know, it's one of those things where you have to, ah,
Yeah, that.
yeah.
Yeah, you gotta breathe. You got look. We're doubling back now again.
Woo,
You
yeah.
gotta
It is what
breathe.
it's
You gotta
definitely one
breathe.
of those you have to look back and be like,
Woo, I was a different person. You know, I'm a very
felt
different
that.
person. And but that's okay, right? Like
Mhm.
there's something that can be said for I feel like I don't have at this point, knock on wood, I don't have that many regrets in my life so far.
Mhm.
And I say that because all of the people that have come into my life, they came into my life for a reason, and they shape the person that you see before you and you hear before you today. And I appreciate the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. In the moment, when those things were, you know, I was going through those things, was I the same person that I am today? No. Did I interact and did I communicate with intentionality, with honesty, with transparency and compassion? I would like to think so, but maybe not nowhere near as much as I do now. And so when I do look back, I think about a lot of those interactions and a lot of those friendships and relationships that I've had. And I'm like, whew, okay. I learned a lot. Yeah, like, whew. I learned a lot from those experiences. And I still look back at them today and I don't regret that I went through them. But more so, I look back at them and I learn. I look back at them and I say to myself, like, even if I know that, oh yeah, like I was in the right, I still now have a different perspective of what that other person felt at that time. Now that I've had many years
Mhm.
to process it and to unpack it for myself, I don't need to maintain that relationship anymore because I've already gotten what I needed from it. But
Mhm.
I can still look back at that relationship and recall the things that I experienced, the things that I was able to take away and I was able to learn that influences how I communicate today. So is it uncomfortable? Absolutely, especially that moment when you it's like that moment of realization. You open up your mind, you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not the same person that I was last week or the week before, months before, the years before. I'm not the same person that this person believes me to still be. I'm not them
Mhm.
anymore. And that's
Right.
okay. But that means that we may not mesh anymore. So we may have to go our separate ways. Is this going to hurt? 100%. Is it necessary? Also 100%. And
Right.
yeah, it does take time to be able to look back and be like, yeah, okay. Whew.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah. I really appreciate you for that because it's that self-actualization for yourself to know that when you change the way that you talk and you articulate yourself, it kind of articulates your circle too.
Yes.
You know,
mhm.
because you are a reflection of the people that are around you. So when you change your words impact that circle
Yes.
because
Mhm.
words have a lot of power. You know, one word can change someone's life. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? We have conversations that change our lives.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? This conversation we have here changes a lot of things. We learn from each other, we build relationships, and things change from that. We grow from that, and it's only growing from here. Like we wouldn't, as people, want to stay stagnant and stay in the same position because we live in a universe that forever expands. So that means we're always growing. So I definitely appreciate that because you know what you appreciate appreciates.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
so Tyler, was you gonna say something?
No, I was gonna say I definitely agree with you, and
Yes.
at least even since doing the podcast, that was basically my experience and your experience as well. You starting to realize that some things aren't clicking anymore. Like this isn't working anymore, and you need an update or you need to recalibrate what it is that would work for now, and that's going to be sustainable. So then that way you don't have this breakdown again. And it starts with yourself, and as we say, friends, family, like people around you are a mirror of yourself. And I loved how you guys said that you guys journal a lot, because I do as well. And something that like I noticed was like my values are changing, and the people around me, they don't do that. And at least from what I've known, this is what I thought was going to work for the rest of my life, but now it's not, and that's okay. And the relationships served for what they were supposed to. And something that like I'm really big on now. I've always loved music. Angel knows that. And something that I'm really big on now within the last year, especially the last 4 months. I've been super big on listening to instrumentals and like jazz, even R&B, like just anything that has rain in the background as well.
Mm.
And whether I'm journaling, I'm walking, or I could just be sitting there or laying down. And I just like that it allows me to just kind of get a groove and a rhythmic focus where I'm organizing my thoughts, or I just need to talk to myself. Because even when I'm being vulnerable with myself, or I need a moment with God, and I just need to get a sense of me out. And sometimes instrumentals does that, and it just allows that peace where I have this image of a background where I'm in this area, like I'm in a coffee shop and it's raining, and there's a glass rooftop, so I can look through the ceiling and see the moon and things like that. So as far as imagery and visualization goes, I'm really big on that, and I think that along the way, I didn't realize how big music played a part of my life when I was younger with the people I was with, and how I would go to music so much, or I would go to my journal or go to reading, because it was a sense of an escape, a sense of where I need to find myself again. And now that I do that so much more often, it's a lot more healthier. I don't lose myself. I'm just guiding myself along the way now.
Oof.
Mm.
Ooh.
Love that, Tyler. And I know
Thank
as
you.
many times as you may have said that, I always love hearing it because I feel like there's always something more to learn about with someone when we're having a conversation. No matter how many times they say it, there's always
Hmm.
something to grab from it. And that's another thing about communication. Like there's
Hmm.
always something there because people are always growing. So if people's always growing, there's always something to grow into.
Yes.
Hmm.
So it's like I wanted to add into what you were saying, and having those walks and writing in a journal like we all do is important because it allows ourselves to see how we talk to ourselves, right? As we've been mentioning this whole time. And one thing I say is that the way that we talk to ourselves is how we allow others to talk to us. So
Hmm.
if you don't
Absolutely.
see for yourself how you talk, then you're just going to let anyone talk to you anyway. But if you see for how you talk to yourself, you will set that standard, but like, hey, this is what I value, and I won't settle for any less than that.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
And you, because we talked about this before, right? The power of words. Words can easily build someone up. They can give them the inspiration and the confidence to change the world. We've seen
Hmm.
it throughout
Literally.
history, right? It also has the ability to tear people down. We've also seen that.
Yep.
As much as we uh, as much as we talk about the appreciation and uh, I guess the love that we have for all the different people in our lives and the interactions that we have, a lot of times it gets lost, the actual words that we say sometimes, or that we don't. For example, there was one of my students who gave a speech. I have them also do. It's called the praise speech. They can choose anything. Doesn't even have to be a person, but it can be. Choose a person or a thing or concept or idea that you want to praise that has had a significant impact on who you are or who we see before us today. And the reason why I have them do that is because that had a direct impact on who we are, a direct impact. And maybe it continues to as we're growing and we're developing. But when was the last time that we took a second to say thank you? When was the last
Mm.
Hmm.
time that we
Yep.
took a step back to say, I appreciate you?
Yep.
Well, now's the time. And don't just say thank you. Put a name to it. Put a description to it. Tell us about
Hmm.
that person. Tell us about that thing. How has that person impacted you? How do they make you feel? And what is your hope for the future? Since you have that
Mm.
influence and that impact, this is our time to say thank you. So words are extremely powerful, absolutely powerful, but they're also extremely powerful to ourselves. When you wake up in the morning, if the first thing that you tell yourself is, ugh, today's going to suck. Well, what do you think is going to happen? Today's going to suck. You know what I mean?
Because that's your expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you wake up in the morning, you go into the mirror and you're like, ugh, I'm fat. So you're going to let somebody else walk up to you in your face and say, you're fat. How would you feel?
You should go to the gym.
Yeah, you should go to the gym. Like, those aren't the ways that we would want someone to talk to us. Why would we talk to ourselves? Because if we want to build ourselves up, we want to become more confident, we want to become more effective communicators and speakers, the first step is us. How are you talking to yourself? What is that self-talk? What are the things that you're saying? Because I can tell you 9 times out of 10, and I've fallen victim to this myself, it's more often than not negative self-talk. You're not enough.
Yep.
You're not this. You don't have this. You lack this. And a lot of times it happens at the start of the day. And we don't even know how significant of an impact that it's going to have on the remainder of our day and all of the different interactions that we have along the way. It starts with us. So if anyone takes anything from this, I mean, words are very powerful, but don't forget yourself in that process.
Yeah, I hope everyone...
I love everything that you were saying, because like, as you mentioned, or as we've been saying this whole time, it starts with us. And I was going to say, as far as that praise speech, and how it starts in the earliest of our days, you know, affirmations, you want to put power towards that. So you could say, I am loving, I am kind, but why are you kind? Why are you loving? And you can say, I am loving because I give everyone a chance. I am loving because I love myself and I want everybody to feel the same. Or I am healthy because I work out, or I will work out today. And, you know, I just like how that all connects together. So it goes back, like when we can do that to ourselves, now the praise speech for somebody else is not just, oh, thank you for getting me that ride. Why did you get me that? No, thank you for getting me that ride. I was in a tough time right now, and I appreciate you for standing out versus everybody else. And you were there for me when it was really tough. Like that right there alone says a lot more, even though it's extended. It's not even long-winded. It's extended, but it's an actual praise where somebody could see, like, it gave me a reason why I was able to help them, and I appreciate that I was able to be there for them. And now, like, it just allows me to be warm and not feel like I was used.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, I love this, and we could talk about it all day about communication and how important it is. I definitely want to get into our last segment, and it's the Rally for Cry, where we ask you 4 questions, personalized for you, so you can answer it to 1 word minimum to sentence maximum. So you can do your best. And so to my first question, as a communicator, what was the best advice you ever received?
Let your voice be heard.
Let your voice be heard. Simple. Simple. See, like you said, you got to make it simple, but not simpler.
Yep.
There you go. All right. To the second question, as a communicator, what is the worst advice you ever received?
Just say it.
Oh.
Ooh, that's a tricky one too.
Emphasis on just.
Right. There you go.
And the whole, just say it.
Just. Right. This is not
just
Nike,
say,
like, just do it.
Yeah.
But
No.
Just say it. I won't judge. I won't judge. Just say it.
Just say it.
The just. Just is justified. So.
There you go.
Words, every word has an intricate meaning. Just say it.
It does.
Right?
It does.
It's that active listening.
There you go. Yeah. Got him.
So now, when you get good news, who's the first person you go to?
So the first person I go to is my best friend Aaron. And yeah, it's my best friend Aaron, because he has the best reactions.
Nice.
Nice.
Love that.
Yeah.
You should have seen my reaction the other day when Angel was telling me something that happened in the day. You should have seen my reaction.
Right. It's
That's
like
what I
it's
love.
almost like a show.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's what makes a good communicator too. Like when you're able to talk to someone and like
Yes.
they actually feel like they were listening. It's like, yeah, I know, right?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
body language, like we were talking
Yeah.
about.
All right, now the final one.
Come.
Let's give a round of applause. If you had to make one law and one law only, and everyone had to follow, what would it be?
Be kind. Just that. Be kind.
Simple.
Doesn't
Kind.
cost anything. It doesn't take anything away from you. You're not giving anything up. Just simply being kind. And it can make a world of a difference in someone else's life. And then it's a ripple effect. They're going to do it to other people, and they're going to do it to other people. And you'll start to realize people are much happier. Well, it's because of, Chris's new law of be kind.
I love how you say that, because empathy goes into that, active listening goes into that. And me and Andrew just learned, we had somebody else that we were speaking with, and she has a segment where listening with love. And it's along those lines where, being empathetic, be compassionate, be respectful. And with respect, I remember when Angel told me this, my mind was blown. With respect, re is to do again, and to spect is to spectate. So you're looking again to respect something or someone and give it the acknowledgement and praise and respect that it deserves. And I think that's just something that's so beautiful and powerful. You see, like, I had that same reaction. That was my exact same reaction.
He's writing that down. Write that down. Everybody got to write that down. What? It's crazy. Oh, the breakdowns in words is crazy. Like, I was just going to say, like, when you said to be kind and it doesn't take anything away from you, it just projects to the other person, it's literally infectious.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Infectious, right? And so it's like when you're kind, it infects someone in a way where it's like it's positive, right?
Yeah.
Infectious is not only to be negative or anything like that, but it's where like it spreads.
Yeah.
So that's literally it. I think when we hear certain words, we take it out of proportion and not really understand the actual definition of it. Like the Latin grounded word. Like we are starting to do so much soft language nowadays and all these other things that it's starting to make communication a little bit harder, but we can't forget where it came from.
Yeah. Go back to the roots. Go back to the roots. And including ourselves. Yeah.
There you go. Right.
Definitely.
Pun intended. Pun intended.
Go back to the roots, protect that inner child. Because at the end of the day, the same thing that we learn as children is the same things that we're learning as adults. It's just different state of minds. Yeah. Literally.
There you go.
Absolutely.
And you have to have the ability to respond, which means responsibility. So yes. Ooh,
yo, wait, are we at a cafe right now, guys? I think we're at a cafe.
I'm with some coffee right now.
I'll take a latte. Thank you.
I'll take a vanilla bean frap, please, and make sure to add my cookie swirl and a caramel macchiato.
Bro has a whole menu, bro. He's an original. He was like, "Yep, that's our regular."
Yep.
Here goes Tyler again, guys. Get the ingredients ready.
Yep, we're ready for you. It's already ready. It's already paid for. We already got your card on file.
Yep. Thank you. I'll make sure to add 2 more ingredients next time. Thank you.
Get that. Make it a little bit more special for you.
Gotta jazz it up a little bit.
Yeah. I love this. And hey, everybody that is listening, we really hope that you guys got something from this conversation. Effective communication is so much bigger than just communicating. It's about learning to understand yourself, learning how to connect with the other person in front of you, understand them first, right? You had to listen, and that's how you grow, and that's how you build relationships. And it's going to take some time. It's not going to be perfect every time, but it's just the fact that you're not going to be right, but at least you're going to make every time worth it. You know what I mean? It's not about finding every moment. It's not about finding the right moment, but it's making every moment right.
Yeah.
So it's just I just really hope that you guys got something from this. So make sure that you guys follow us on Instagram at The Rally Cries, and also follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Make sure that you guys leave a like and just let us know that we're doing something good. Leave us a review if we haven't talked about something or we haven't talked about it enough. Let us know, because there's always something to talk about. So yeah, remember, you always want to read, respond, and then build. So until next time, y'all take one step at a time.
One day at a time. Peace.